Hey everybody, so today we're going to be talking about homeschooling, the pros and cons. In my opinion, what for us have been good things and what have been bad things. It's a Saturday morning here. I'm sitting outside. It is beautiful out here. Hopefully the lighting's not too terrible for y'all for this video. So, homeschooling. For us, we have now finished our 4th year. It wasn't consecutive. We did my oldest daughter kindergarten and 1st grade, then there was some traditional school, and then after the craziness of 2020, we decided to homeschool after that. So we are now finishing our 2nd consecutive year since pulling out of traditional school and starting to homeschool then. So 4 years altogether, we are finishing up our 4th year of homeschooling. And we have went through a lot of different things in that time. I've went through having a new baby. He's 5 months old. So we've went through, pregnancy and having a new baby at home. We've been through a couple of different scenarios in this, sicknesses and just all kinds of stuff. So I've been thinking a lot with the year coming to an end about what has been good and what has not been good about homeschooling. And I've got family members and friends that are talking about should they put their kids back in school or should they pull them out because they hadn't pulled them out of traditional school, but they've been thinking about it. So I was just going to share with you some pros and cons of what I've been thinking about here lately, what's been good and what's not been so good about homeschooling. So maybe if you're on the fence, decide whether you want to homeschool or not, or if you're on the fence of deciding whether to send your kids back to traditional school or not, maybe this will help you out. So if you're new here, my name is Brooke. We are a homeschool family. We are doing this on a budget. I work part to full-time. My husband does the bulk of the homeschooling day to day. And I'm just here to share some of the stuff that we have learned along the way, and hopefully we can help you out. So, pros and cons. Sorry, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Okay, so the first few pros and cons have to do with the fact that the kids are physically here in the house instead of being gone. So first pro that for us has been that we can schedule the kids' appointments anytime we want to. We don't have to worry about, oh great, are they gonna, we got a dentist appointment. Are they gonna miss a test? Are they gonna miss this field trip? Is there some sort of, presentation that they're supposed to be doing that day that you didn't know about and you scheduled the dentist appointment 6 months ago? Stuff like that, or spur of the moment doctor's appointments for another kid, and you don't want to have the hassle of driving back and forth from school, or just all kinds of crazy stuff. You can work your school around the doctor's appointments. You can schedule things when you need to. If you want to go to a dentist appointment at lunchtime, you don't have to worry about pulling your kid out of school. So that's been a good thing. And then also you can spur of the moment decide to go somewhere if you want to, or if you decide one day, hey, I think we should go to the aquarium or the zoo tomorrow. I think this would go great with what we're learning about in science. Let's go to the zoo this week. You can just decide to do that. You don't have to work around anybody else's schedule. It's your schedule, and you get to set it. You get to work everything around you and what you want to do, or around your kids. If kids come up, we've had that happen. Our kids have come up with something fun that they want to do, and we're like, yeah, we can do that this week. Con to that same scenario is that if you have a doctor's appointment, and this is something that I went through a pregnancy, and you have the doctor's appointments at the beginning every month, and then it goes to every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. I was blessed to be able to have my mom come and sit with our girls while my husband went with me to all of our appointments. But maybe you don't have that, and you're going to have to find a babysitter. But anytime you have doctor's appointments where you have to go by yourself, or any appointment, anytime, if you just want to have some me time, you don't get that. That is something that I do sometimes miss. It was great to have a lunchtime, that I wasn't working, my husband wasn't working before we had our baby. Both the girls were in school, and if we wanted to go eat lunch one day, we could just, if I wasn't working, he wasn't working, we could just go spend the day and go eat lunch. Kids were in school, and we just had to be worried about getting back in time to pick them up from school. Can't do that anymore unless we have somebody watch the kids. But I think the pro outweighs the con there. It is nice to get those times, but I think it's been even nicer for us to be able to just up and go whenever we want to do something with the kids. So moving on to the next one. Another one that has to do with the kids being home all the time is that your kids get to pitch in and help. They get to have more responsibilities in the home with cleaning and chores. If you're anything like I was when kids were going to traditional school, it was get up, rush like a crazy person in the morning, and you barely have enough time just to get everybody dressed, fed, and out the door. Well, now with homeschooling, we get up, we have morning chores. The girls have set morning chores that they're supposed to do every morning, and we have time for that. If school gets started 20 minutes late, 30 minutes later than we're planning on it, then so be it. At least the bedroom is straightened up, the dishes are cleaned. You know, some of the things that our girls have to do is just daily stuff that helps keep our house functioning. So if school gets pushed out a little bit, no big deal. It's not like when we were rushing to get to school, it was, you know, out the door with, you know, don't even have your shoes tied and we forget our lunches and all that. We don't have to deal with that. So the kids get to take part in having responsibilities of chores and keeping the house clean and helping me out. And also with being home, they get to eat their meals at home, and they're eating better, I'd say. They're eating a little healthier. My husband does the bulk of the daily homeschool stuff, and he is here to do the lunch for the kids. So he gets to fix them lunch, and another thing is saving money. So I guess the two pros to that would be the kids get to help with the cleaning chores, and then another pro would be that they're eating healthier and we're saving money by cooking at home. And then I guess the con to that would be so many dirty dishes. We're eating 3 meals at home. All of us are here. Even me, when I'm going to work and eating at work, I'm usually eating leftovers from something that was fixed at home. So that's just dirty dishes for at home. I'm not eating out. Another pro that I've been thinking about here lately, with seeing all the things in the news about what kids are learning and all the different curriculum choices that people are not happy with, is when you're homeschooling, you get to choose what your child is learning. You don't have to answer to anybody for it. As long as your child is learning what they need to learn, you know, you can skip over the stuff that's just extra and you think shouldn't even be in the curriculum. Or if your child is excelling and you want to teach them something above the level that what they would be considered, you can do that too. You get to choose what they're learning, when they're learning it, how they're learning it, whether it's on the computer, if they're reading out of a book, if it's on their iPad, you know, you get to choose how they're learning. And that has been a big pro for me, because we get to cater it to our kids. You know, if we want to skip over something in science because I know they're going to cover it next year and they're not really interested in it this year, we can do that and keep them interested in it for this year so that they're not getting bored and burn out with it. And I know we're going to cover that other thing next year. You know how your child is learning, and you get to cater your child's schoolwork to them. A con to that would be all the planning that you're having to put into it. It's not like when you send them off to school, they get the homework sent home and you just have to keep up with what the teacher's planning. That teacher puts a lot of work into that, planning the daily work for your kids and planning out the homeschool. It's a lot. I enjoy it, but it is a lot. Sometimes it is a hassle when you're the homeschool mom and you're tired and you don't feel like planning the schoolwork for the next day or the next week, or looking at the next year might look like just a huge task. You know, pros and cons. I believe it's worth it, but sometimes it's just so tiring. Another pro is that if you are homeschooling versus private school, if you're homeschooling, it is much cheaper than sending your child to a private school. Much cheaper. You can homeschool on a budget, and I'm going to share some more things about that in later videos. You don't have to spend a ton of money on homeschooling, on the curriculum, on products that you're using. You just don't have to. You look at it on the flip side. Oh, I wish I could turn the camera around. There's a hummingbird. It's so cute. We've got a hummingbird feeder, and there was a hummingbird right here just now. Anyway, sorry, easily distracted. Flip side to that, if your child was going to public school, which is free tuition, homeschooling is not cheaper. I'm just talking about the tuition, not all the extra stuff, not all the clothes, uniforms, anything extra you have to pay for with public school or private school. I'm just talking about the tuition. It's cheaper than private school, but it's more expensive than public school. So however you want to look at that. Another pro I've been thinking about here lately is the school calendar. You get to set the school calendar. I have already printed out my calendar for 22-23 school year, and I've already went through, and what I'll do is I start with how many days I want to do school. I go ahead and start with the days. I'll go ahead, like I'll have the year calendar, like the whole year on this page and the whole year on this page, and I'll go through day by day on each month, and I will circle the days that we're going to do school. We're going to take a week off here, and we're going to take a week off here. And this week is somebody's birthday, so we're not going to do school on her birthday. Or I know that we have a big meeting at our church coming up on this certain month, something that's an annual thing, and we're not going to want to do school on certain days so that we can be there. Oh, and now there's a lizard. A big lizard. It's like this big. I'm outside in nature. Okay, so if we decide that there's, an upcoming meeting with our church, a youth meeting or whatever, and I don't want to do school on those days, then I just erase that off of our calendar, and then I'll go back and count our days, and okay, we're down to 185 days. We'll make these 5 field trip days, or I'll just leave them on there, and that'll be variable, sick days or whatever for us. I kind of get close to 180 days. That's about average for North Carolina. I just try to do about 180 days, but I get to make my own calendar. We can be off on birthdays. If I know that there's going to be this, vendor event at a park for spring, and we're still doing schoolwork, but I know I'm going to want to be off on that day, then we can just be off on that day. I get to set my own calendar, and I think that far outweighs any of the cons that have to do with that. Another one that kind of goes along with that is you can pick your own field trips. If you want to pick a field trip day at Spur of the Moment, you can. If you want to do a field trip that has to do with the curriculum that your child is learning right then, that maybe you didn't think about when you were planning the curriculum out, you can do it. You don't have to wait. You don't have to plan it around anybody else. You can just look up where you want to go and go. It can be something extravagant, something that you plan for weeks ahead of time, or it can be just one day, we're going to go to the park and we're going to do like some sort of nature scavenger hunt for a field trip. You get to set your own field trips. You get to go, your kids go where you want them to go. And I think it can be good because sometimes with the field trips that my kids went on, they didn't really enjoy it, or they did enjoy it because they were with their friends and they were playing and having fun, but the actual place that they went, they couldn't tell you anything about the place when they got home. So you get to decide the field trips, and if you want to go somewhere that you think is interesting and your kids don't, you can do that too. It's up to you. This is one that has been coming up a lot, and this always comes up. Pro and con to your kids being around other kids. So a pro, and I think it goes both ways. A pro, you could list it as your kids are not around their peers all day, every day. You're like, what? I think that's a con. You could say it as a con. My kids don't get to be around their peers all day, every day. But honestly, when my girls were in traditional school, my oldest was coming home almost every day complaining about the friends in her class. It got to the point where I had to tell her, tell me something good that happened today. All you're doing is complaining. Did anything good happen today? Because it was, this person was mad at this person, or this person was being really disrespectful to the teacher while we were taking a test today. Or you should have seen the way these kids were acting. It was constant every day. And it got to the point where I wasn't sure that she was actually learning what she needed to be learning because she was so distracted by how the other kids were acting in class. So pro for me, my kids don't have to be around all the other kids all day, every day, sitting in class while they're trying to learn. You could think that's a con, and that is part of the whole homeschool stereotype of, your kids are not going to get any socialization. Honestly, if that's the socialization that my kids were getting, was coming home complaining because the kids were so distracting every day, they don't need that kind of socialization. My girls get, I say my girls because my baby's not old enough for really much of the socialization, but my girls get plenty of socialization. And it could be a really big con for you if you don't have the type of situation that we have, where our girls get to spend a lot of time with our church group. There's a big youth group, and there's constant activities and things going on with our church, so they get to be involved with those families, and there's plenty of young people. They're not missing out on anything. Sometimes my girls will say, I wish I could go back to school, but it's just so that they could see one certain person. And I remind them that friend doesn't even go to school anymore. They're homeschooled too. So it wouldn't help. So pro and con, your kids don't have to be around all the other kids all day, every day, or con, they don't get to be around all the other kids all day, every day. That's totally up to you and your situation. And then finally, one that I've been thinking about because I've been planning our curriculum for next year is that I get to do our work on my kids' schedule, or, they get to work at their own pace. I have one daughter that is not excelling in math, and then I have another who is. So I, last year, put my oldest back. She went backwards in math. I needed her to go back and relearn some things that she did not learn. She learned it, but it didn't sink in. She did not retain that information. So we went back. I put her back 2 grade levels, actually. So this past year, she has done 2 grade levels of math. And then next year, she's going to do the same thing, and she'll be caught up. But it has been so good with her. She's got a 93 average in her math right now. And I could do that. She is still a 7th grade, rising 8th grader. All of her other subjects, she is right in the, right where she needs to be, end of 7th grade. Math, we went back because she needed it. I think my other daughter, she may get ahead in math. We're going to start working on 3rd grade. She's going into 3rd grade, and we're probably going to start working on it now before the end of the year. She's going to already be in that 3rd grade curriculum before we start next year, or we start our next school year in the 3rd grade. And I believe she's going to work faster. So if by the time we get halfway through her 3rd grade level, or 3rd grade year, if she's already done with that 3rd grade math and we want to move on to 4th grade, we're going to go ahead, and she can get ahead if I feel like that's where she should be. And you can't do that. I mean, to a certain extent, you can kind of do that in traditional school. So that's been a big thing for me, that I get to put my kids where they need to be, because I know where their learning level is, and I know when it's pushing them too much to the point that it's not good for them, and I know when they are not learning enough and they need to go ahead. But yeah, that's been some things. I actually wrote this list of these pros and cons in maybe 5-10 minutes. I was just thinking all the things that I had been thinking leading up to this point, and this year, toward the end of this year, I'd been thinking about all these things of why are we homeschooling? Why would it be good if we sent them back to traditional school? There's more pros and cons for me to homeschool. So I don't see myself sending my kids back to traditional school anytime soon. I'm not saying I never would, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon. So I hope this helped. If you're on the fence trying to figure out one way or the other, maybe this opened your eyes to some of the pros and cons that might help you make that decision. If you have any questions about what we do, if you have any comments about how you're deciding, what are some of your pros and cons that I didn't mention, and I could come up with some more. Like I say, this was just a quick 5-10 minutes of some of the stuff I've really been thinking about here lately. But leave something in the comments. Let me know that you're watching. And if this was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.